For the past 2 days, you all have experienced live all of the terrible events going on in the gray area. And I, for one, have to say that I am both grateful and happy that things ended well. The people of the gray area can now safely return home, be with their families, and live their lives the same way that all of us live our lives. Yesterday, we concluded that time travels fast, moving from 2023 to 2027. Now we're going a little bit further in time to the year 2029. The events that have happened within the gray area have now moved into the background of media and everyday life. Simply put, we are all busy living our lives, that we don't talk about this that much anymore. I, for one, am guilty of that as well. Some days, I'm just looking online, scrolling through social media, looking at other news stories, watching videos and things online. But then, I came across this.
Good evening. Exactly 2 years ago today, we were on the brink of a new world war that would be dominated by AI-controlled information systems. Fortunately, everything ended with a hiss. But if it taught us one thing, it is that in addition to being helpful, AI can become quite dangerous if its limitations are not carefully considered. Today, I'll look back at the events with two people who played an important role in it. First, Ms. Sharon Baker. You're an AI scientist, and 2 years ago, when the Purple Alliance attacked the gray area, you happened to be part of a conference in The Hague where experts gathered to talk about AI in military systems.
Yeah, it was a weird coincidence, especially since for the first few hours of that summit, we had no idea what was going on. But when we caught on and we became live participants in what was going on, it suddenly made us have very concrete examples we could discuss. When it comes to the use and responsibility of AI in military domain, there has been a lot of changes since the turmoil in the gray area.
And can you elaborate on those changes? Has the world become a safer place?
Oh yes, definitely. Certain agreements have made the world and the use of AI systems a lot more secure. And a part of it is that we put much more emphasis on the front end of the AI development process. And international treaties have been signed regulating the responsible use of AI in the military domain. Laws have emerged that regulate the collection and the use of data for machine learning.
Mr. Aziz Fahim, you're head of Intel. And at the time of the crisis in the gray area, you were at the epicenter, where all Intel came in and had to be analyzed using AI. Since the crisis, we've had you many times in our show to talk about all the dilemmas you faced at that time. What are your thoughts now? Do you feel important changes have been made?
What I'm pleased about and what I think is important is that many countries have developed toolkits that improve the validation and verification of AI in military systems.
Here with us, you talk many times about the importance of training your personnel. What's the state of that?
I've been asked to help develop training courses to help military personnel better understand the opportunities and limitations of AI in military systems. We started rolling out these courses a few months ago, and the results have been amazing. AI can be, as we all know, a very tricky thing. So for the self-assurance of our people, it's very important to teach these courses.
So you're satisfied with how it's going now?
Well, I want to add one more thing. Because no matter how good all these developments we are talking about are, technology continues to evolve. It's necessary to keep constant watch, not only looking at where AI helps us, but also where it can put us at risk.
And how do we achieve that, Ms. Baker?
Well, it's only possible through clear agreements and structural international cooperation. We have to keep on talking to each other.
Talking to each other. I like that. That's a good ending. Actually, it's more of a good start. You see, These are the tools right now, and hopefully, people in this room can make it possible. But honestly, it's all up to you. As I leave this stage here today, I have a little bit more of a peace of mind knowing that all of you are looking at the responsible uses of AI to make our world just a little bit safer. It was my pleasure to be able to guide you through this wonderful and very complex situation. And I thank you all so very much for being on the forefront of using AI within the military domain. I want to wish you all the best of luck, the best of wisdom, and I want to thank you all so very much for each and every one of your efforts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. One last thing. If you're currently looking to go on vacation or a good work trip somewhere, I hear that the gray area is gorgeous these days. Thank you.
So, welcome to the plenary closing of REAIM 2023. Particular welcome to our co-host of REAIM, the Dutch Minister of Foreign Affairs Hoekstra, Dutch Minister of Defense Ollongren, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea, His Excellency Park. Welcome, Your Excellencies, and all the esteemed guests from my panels. And for those of you who missed the first day, we just saw the end of the scenario. We use this scenario to take you with us in this development of AI in the military domain, and also to show you the different dilemmas that we might be facing. And it's important that the Netherlands, together with the Republic of Korea, has taken this initiative to be a driving force in this international stakeholder dialogue on this particular theme. We are happy to discuss the way forward with my final panel of today, but first let me introduce you to Her Excellency, the Minister of Defense, Ms. Kaisa Ollongren, our co-host, together with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. The floor is yours. If you can.
Thank you very much. Well, it's up to us. That's what we've heard. First of all, let me thank you for coming to The Hague for this important conference, for discussing with us AI in the military domain, for sharing with us your expertise. It's a topic about which we can continue talking for days, for weeks, perhaps even longer than that. But I'm happy that we have, in a very short time, managed to come up with a broadly shared call to action. So over the past days, there have been agreements and disagreements about the risks and opportunities of the use of AI in the military domain. Discussions about responsibilities, cooperation, policy frameworks that need to be developed, regulatory gaps that need to be filled. Discussions between NGOs and policymakers, between academics and the private sector. And that is exactly what we need to be doing, because AI provides us with tremendous opportunities. AI can process data in a way that's impossible for humans. It can make our logistical and operational processes faster and much more efficient. AI can provide our armed forces with the right knowledge at the right time to enable us to take decisions fast and under high time pressure. It protects our militaries. It allows us to minimize collateral damage. At the same time, we know that there are states and also non-state actors that will not shy away from using AI to achieve their aims. And if we cannot defend ourselves and our operators against them, this poses a major threat to our security and our societies. And this is why we and our armed forces must stay ahead of the curve. And that means maintaining our technological edge, It also means ensuring that we use AI within the framework of the rule-based international order and our shared values. But we need to be realistic. Of course, there are risks, and that's why we must set our own standards together. To achieve all of this, we need academia, we need think tanks, we need NGOs, we need businesses, startups, scale-ups, and we need the can-do mentality of our armed forces. And the normative and financial powers of governments. We need all the knowledge we can get and develop if we want to keep up, and if we want to do so responsibly. AI has been the talk of the town for years, but it's now time to talk about the use of AI in the military domain. I think our military coordination has already risen up to unprecedented levels, and I believe we can do the same when it comes to AI. And that brings me to the call to action that's being endorsed today. And that call to action is the end of this conference, but it's only the start of the work that lies ahead. The work that we do to ensure our military is fit for the future and equipped with the means to win tomorrow's fight if necessary. And let's do that together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I would like to invite my 3 panelists for the final panel of today. Izumi Nakamitsu, the Under-Secretary General and High Representative for Disarmament of the United Nations. One more step. Thank you. Can I invite you here? Bruno Ficheveux, the head of the Future Combat Air Systems Program and member of the Airbus Defence and Space Executive Committee. Welcome. And Dr. Alison Gardner, the founder and director of Women Leading in AI. Welcome. So I'm very happy that you'll be discussing with me, amongst others, the way forward. Thank you so much for being in my final panel of today. Ms. Nakamitsu, maybe I can ask you the first question. Why was it so important for the United Nations to be present here at the REAIM Summit?
Well, simply put, this is one of the key issues in order for us to have more secure world into the future. This is a priority agenda for the Secretary General. He has been making quite strong statements about AI, lethal autonomous weapon systems, etc. Also the fact that there has been actually quite good substantive discussions taking place, which the United Nations has been supporting. These are discussions by member states in the context of CCW, Convention on Certain Conventional Weapon Systems, discussing lethal autonomous weapon systems. So simply put, this is a top priority issue for the future security.
And how does the United Nations include other actors also in these multilateral discussions?
We are, of course, the United Nations is an intergovernmental entity. So traditionally, actors have been member states representatives. However, there have been, I think, a major change in the thinking of various governments, the so-called multi-stakeholder engagements, especially in issues related to science and technology areas, will be key. One, because we need the expertise, understanding the knowledge of those private sectors, academic, civil society people, and industry people, and scientists and engineers themselves who are developing those new technologies. But also, I think it's important that for us to become, if you will, a little bit more entrepreneur in terms of norm development. The norms in the 21st century is not just about international treaties being negotiated by governments, but we need to also look at what we might call soft laws, norms that might amount to industry standards, which is adhered to by private sector entities, all sorts of instruments related to enhancing norms will be quite important. So naturally, the instinct for us is to bring together those multi-stakeholders, those actors. And we have become much better. We are calling those entities to get involved, participate. And I must say, there has been a very strong interest on the part of those stakeholders as well to be part of those discussions.
I think that's also what we saw here at REAIM the past 2 days. Mr. Fischwe, also from the private sector, we have a lot of companies present here these days. You are the head of the multinational program called Future Combat Air System. That's actually Europe's largest future defense corporation between France, Germany, and Spain. What do you foresee as the most important future steps when it comes to the application of AI in the military domain?
Well, following very interesting discussions that have been taking place over the last 2 days, I think there are 4 steps which needs to be considered in this deployment. First one, and it's not always easy, is to acknowledge and not ignore the fact that AI will play a key role in our society, but also in defense. Also because AI is scaled at high speed in the commercial tech industry and will have necessarily spillover into defense application, if we like it or not. And also because the operational requirements of our armed forces in the future will face tremendous threat. I think on the first day, Professor Freeman said there's information is plentiful, and it will saturate in the cockpit the decision maker that will have on the battlefield to take some decision. How do you assist the pilot with all the information coming from different sensors and unmanned systems to make sure he takes the right decision? And he has it at the speed that the scenario will require. The videos that we saw over the 2 days were mainly on command centers where you have time to think about, am I taking the right decision? In the cockpit, it's about seconds, and we need to speed up this process. So acknowledge that AI will play a role. The second one, I think, is a normative part, putting regulations to help us frame the design of such systems. And this first needs to take place at the level of the United Nations, initiatives also like CCW, to push the normative part there. There's a lot of effort ongoing there, but today there is no international regulation on AI, responsible AI for the military. And I think that's also what this type of conference wants to trigger. And not only United Nations, but NATO, for us, Europe, because having an isolated national approach will not help for this type of technologies. Third step, I think, is implementing. Once you have a regulation, how do you translate it into process, design processes, qualification steps, to make sure that the way you design your solution will respond to these needs? And today, with a program such as FCAS, we are developing the technologies of the next generation military systems. And it's today. And it's today that we need this framework. We need this input in our design process. And we want to trigger it. And the last step, we saw it just in the movie, is a constant watch. While we define a framework and we implement it, AI develops at a high pace. It's very, very fast. And we need to cope with this pace and having flexibility in the framework and regulation we place, so that what we put in place today is still valid for tomorrow and the day after.
Thank you. Dr. Gardner, what do you think of today's discussion? You just organized the panel yourself as well. Why was it important to be here together with all these stakeholders?
I think it's been a very interesting time for me. I'm a little bit concerned about the focus very narrowly on human oversight, and I do, and conversations with you, it's about accountability and responsibility, but responsibility extends across the entire AI life cycle, and not just in the gathering of data, you get it from the right data source, but in defining the problems which you wish to use AI to solve. And then when you develop that, you have to have that diverse input and that stakeholder input at that point, because you will not identify half the problems that you could potentially solve if you are, no offense to people, but if you are a very homogenous group of Western white male, for example, you are not going to identify the use cases, you are not going to spot the biases within the data set, you are not going to understand how to manage your feature engineering, your weighting, how to determine your metrics. I come from a technical background, so apologies. And then how you do your risk analysis and your impact analysis, and from a diverse viewpoint. And so, yes, human oversight is really important, but you need to mitigate for the problems at the start. So really diverse development teams and that diversity of thought, and particularly gender diversity, is really important. We struggle within computer science with gender diversity. It's also within the military that we have that problem. So combine those two together and you have serious risk. And if you are developing AI systems that are biased, they not only do they cause unintended consequences and harms, but actually they're a security risk because AI can be gamed. AI isn't as accurate as we like to think it is. And AI can actually drift over time. Even static algorithms that you develop will undergo performance decay. So how do you monitor that going forward to make sure that it's as accurate as you possibly can? And going back to your really good point about helping and augmenting decision making in a high risk situation, again, understanding human behavior, because it is at that human-computer interface where most of the errors occur. You have automation bias, you have the potential for de-skilling, you have alert fatigue. All of these questions need to be considered. And then, and I'll be told off, shall I say, by my Amnesty colleagues and friends that I've met today, that you have to think about the human rights impact and the impact on the individuals and your wider responsibility as a defence organisation to deal with the outcomes of warfare and the damage and how you rebuild from that. And for that, you need diverse views.
Thank you so much. Maybe also to touch upon or go a little bit further, Ms. Nakamitsu, how would you feel that we can also learn in this regard, in regard to governance and governability, in the existing arms control and disarmament mechanism that already exist?
Yeah, thank you for your interventions. That's exactly the same message that I have been giving in these discussions. Arms control disarmament discussions very traditionally taking place in silos, and very much focused on the capabilities or technologies itself to be regulated. More recently, there have been new trends in disarmament discussions, which really focuses on behaviors, responsible behavior. What would constitute irresponsible behavior of states? What might be irresponsible or threatening behaviors? So there is a new sort of a generation of approaches in disarmament arms control discussions focused on responsible behavior. And that is now very much focused in discussions, for example, in the cybersecurity discussions or the outer space, reducing reducing threats in outer space. And so I think the similar approach will be very much necessary, and that's why I like the framing of this conference, responsible AI, and I have been saying exactly focusing on the entire life cycle of AI, from development all the way to use and application of AI. The second thing is also, in recent times, we have also understood that maintaining a multidisciplinary approach, if you will be important in disarmament discussions as well. Now, disarmament has its origin also in humanitarian principles. So from that point of view, it has always been both security and humanitarian. But I think, especially on new technology-related issues, AI, etc., what will be the human rights dimensions? What will be development dimensions? And then, states and industry people, private sector people coming to a common understanding of both benefit, the positives. I can be misunderstood always. I just happen to always talk about the risks because I deal with disarmament and international security. But the UN's position is, let's cooperate to maximize the positive aspect of those technologies whilst at the same time, let's come to a common understanding of the risks and then enhance international cooperation to tackle, mitigate, and reduce the risks. And I think many of you already know the Secretary General has made a very strong call to prohibit those new potential future weapon systems that we already know cannot be used in accordance with international law, especially international humanitarian law, and then focus on regulations on other types. So this interdisciplinary approach, I think, will be key, and that has also been a new trend in disarmament discussions.
Thank you. Maybe Dr. Garner, you already mentioned this prevention of bias would be a very important theme to focus on in the way forward. Are there other themes that you would like to put higher on the political agenda? You have the audience to mention it now.
Well, yes, with regulation, I have a day job where I deal with regulators within the health sector within the UK, and by its nature, regulation is a slow process and has to be quite high level in how it is written. And as you said, the pace of AI development is quite hard. Also, in the technical standards, they can be faster and more responsive, but they are still slow. And I involved in a lot of those. And I will tell you now, I go in and I make sure that part of an ethical AI standard is that you have diverse development teams and you consider the diverse voices of people to be impacted. And if you don't do that, you don't get that CE mark or UKCA mark and so on and so forth. So this is a serious topic that you have to consider. So one of the calls that we're having at the moment with Women Leading in AI is that we want a global task force addressing this, diversity and gender and peace and security in the field to try and break through this catch. It's been static for decades and we haven't solved it, and AI is exacerbating the problem. So if we don't have that way to solve that process, and there are mechanisms which we can go through, and from the principles that we have to actually practical, sustainable frameworks that we can implement that will prevent all of these biases from occurring and all of the risks. That's what we want. So we want that global task force established to address that one. But again, and I would stress, is to educate, because yourselves about AI and understand and see past the hype of it, and that there are the risks, but the risks are multifold, and do think about post-deployment. And I've said it earlier about drift and how you audit and monitor that and make sure it stays in good use. And that is a whole industry that is developing in its own right, and a whole set of regulations of auditing that you need to go forward. So understanding AI and how it's developed, it's not as mysterious and as hard as people think about it. And I think it's really important to educate policymakers and regulators understanding AI, and for the technical teams to also understand the role of a policy, so that we don't get this gap where the principles actually don't get translated into practical methodologies that are actually, but that have to be implemented, because you do, from the technical side of things, trust me, get backlash and pushback on any change that you can have that would require diverse input. They don't like it. So it has to be embedded within regulation.
Thank you so much. Then, Mr. Fischel, and a final question to you. We already spoke about the AI life cycle. What could help you in regard to governing also the different stakeholders between the designing phase and all the other phases of the life cycle of AI?
Well, I think this multi-stakeholder approach is the best one, and I'm very impressed by what REAIM deployed over the last 2 days. I hope also it will generate a momentum that maybe on a yearly basis it will continue across the globe. We need this type of exchange. I mentioned the lack of regulation at this stage, and for us it's an issue, because when we start to design, we need something to base, we need a guideline to start developing. By lack of guideline, we search whatever applies. So for example, we use IEEE standard, which is about value-based engineering, ethic by design, to try to find an anchor point to be able to start. So we need, and that's a call also for the governments, to help us define this framework, that we have something to base on. After that, we can translate it into policy, process, qualification in our approach. And we did it on other areas. In the past, for aviation, it was about the aircraft performance, it was about the speed, hard requirements, but then came the issue of safety. And we were able to deploy safety in our design to be able to define a system, if it fails, that will present no harm for human life and be able to land safely. So if we do it for safety, I'm convinced we can do it also for ethics and have an ethical by design approach.
Thank you so much. Ms. Nagamitsu, just to wrap it up, our panel discussion, what mechanism you feel would be very helpful in this regard?
Well, I think, multi-stakeholder people who can bring policy perspectives, but also legal perspectives and various disciplines, put together with technical experts, people themselves who are involved in designing of these systems, private sector people who are part of the industry, that will definitely benefit from those discussions. And I would actually say that let's bring in young people, especially young scientists and engineers. I think responsible innovation is a very important a phrase that we are starting to use even at the United Nations. And so if we can convene those various actors and then establish a regular process of exchanging information, exchange knowledge, but then that need to really be fed into an actual international policy making processes, making concrete input into policy making processes. So that's the kind of platform and the process that we do need, and we need them very urgently because the technologies are advancing very fast and the multilateral international discussions really need to catch up. I think this conference has been very useful from that perspective, and I hope that this will become a regular undertaking.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your interesting thoughts with us during our final panel of today. A big applause for my panelists.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And now I'm very happy to announce a very special guest here today. We have an interview that was actually recorded yesterday with my colleague here, Redi Talabi. She interviewed the former CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt. He's a very accomplished global leader and technologist, and he served as Google's CEO and later executive chairman from 2001 until 2018. Moreover, Eric served as a chairman to the US National Security Commission on AI until October of 21, and he advises the US government on the steps to take in regard to responsible use of AI for national security. Take it away.
Dr. Schmidt, thank you so very much for joining us here at the REAIM Summit. We've had a great first day of robust debates, and there was a lot of detail on the potential of artificial intelligence in the military domain, but there were some questions raised about the main risks. Now, you are considered a pioneer, a global leader in emerging technologies. Just very briefly, what do you see as the potential of artificial intelligence in the military and some of the risks that may come with it?
Well, let's remember that artificial intelligence broadly is going to change everything. It's going to be new drugs, better healthcare, better materials, better education, hopefully better entertainment. There's lots and lots of benefits from artificial intelligence. In the military domain, it means that a lot of things that humans have been doing can be done better by computers, starting with vision. There's lots of tactical things. The real question about AI is, how does it change our being? How does it change our understanding of ourselves? And I can give you some examples. Artificial intelligence should allow an evil person to build a viral database of terrible pathogens and perhaps release them to the detriment of millions of people. We've got to figure out a way to stop that. Artificial intelligence could allow a foreign state to interfere with the democracy that we know and love in the West. Artificial intelligence could allow a system that automatically decides to attack others which would lead to escalatory behavior in military conflict. So we have to be careful about this technology because it's dual use and it's very powerful.
There is already such extensive use of artificial intelligence in the the civic domain. I mean, it is so ubiquitous. I can't imagine an area of my life that has not been touched by artificial intelligence. You've just warned us about some of the dangers. Are there some lessons that can be drawn from the civic use of artificial intelligence and incorporated into the military?
Well, the first thing to say is that the military is very slow in artificial intelligence. I was fortunate to lead a commission on national security and artificial intelligence in the United States, and we prioritized accelerating its use to make our defenses stronger, make our countries safer, that sort of stuff. But frankly, the military and the military-industrial complex moves very, very slowly compared to the civilian world. In the civilian world, the thing to understand about this technology is it's not correct yet. You wouldn't want it flying the airplane without a pilot watching it. You wouldn't want it telling the doctor what to do. You'd want it to advise the doctor what to do, but you want your doctor to make the proper medical decision. I don't know how long it will be between the time where its judgment is iffy, which is today, to where it's better than humans. I personally believe it will get there. But right now, you shouldn't depend on life-critical decisions based on artificial intelligence. Think of it as advisory. It's advising you on something going on. It's helping you see deeper. That's the state of the art today.
It sounds as if you're suggesting a symbiosis, right? A mutually beneficial relationship where the human agency is still present.
Well, it's more than beneficial. In my view, it's a requirement. All of the military doctrines that I'm familiar with basically have something which goes roughly like a human in the loop, a human in charge, an identifiable decision maker. You do not want conflict initiated on its own by computers. You want the conflict to be initiated by humans who could be held responsible under court of law, international law principles, and that sort of thing. It's otherwise just too dangerous. I mean, if you go back to the Dr. Strangelove movie, where once there's a launch, there's a system that's already primed to launch back that can't be turned back on a false claim, right? It's just way too dangerous to let these things decide on their own. We distinguish between automatic weapons, which is generally a good thing because it will make the weapons more precise, more accurate. There'll be less collateral damage. And automatic weapons systems which make the decision, which we think is a bad idea.
Mm-hmm. So I want to talk a little bit about your books. We can't discuss a whole book in a few minutes interview, but you are a prolific author, The New Digital Age, The Age of AI. What are some of the key takeaways, some of those themes that you really felt strongly about when you wrote that book that you think could be helpful in our deliberations here at The Hague?
Dr. Kissinger and I are very close friends, and he has been studying Kant since before any of us were alive. And he looked at AI and said, AI is something different than you think it is, Eric. AI, of course, is all the things that I've discussed, but it's something else. It's a change in human consciousness. And I said, why? And he said, because in the Reformation, we went from believing in God to believing in reason. Right? The age of reason was the last major change in the way we think. But his argument, which is the basis of our book, is that this new phase of artificial intelligence will lead to us having analogous intelligences that are non-human that we have to interact with. And the examples that I was using involve us watching and helping the AI to get better. And as the AI gets smarter and smarter, humans will be more and more interacting with it. And more importantly, the AI will do things that humans can't do, and the humans will do things that AI can't do. That symbiosis changes our perception of ourselves. There are many examples, but you as a person from birth were taught to believe everything your eyes and your ears tell you. But with generative design and all the new technologies, most of the media you consume in the next 5 years will be manufactured by computers. That has an enormous implication for the way you think, the way you reason, who you trust, where your paranoias and insecurities are, all the problems as a human that all of us have.
Just lastly, here we are at this historic global summit. We are nowhere near getting international consensus and agreement on the responsible use of artificial intelligence, precisely because there is an interface of things, cultural differences, different aptitudes and capacities within states as well. There are the legal frameworks that ought to be worked out and threshed out. But that is the aim, ultimately. You have been part of a national commission on AI. Just using those principles that you applied in your work, what would be your recommendations for a global commission on AI?
Well, we need one. And so I'm really glad that you're suggesting it in the conference. What I would tell you is, first, most of the people who are talking about AI don't understand what it actually does. So the first thing is, this is not killer robots, guys. The first thing to do is to understand what is possible in the next 5 to 10 years and how we're going to regulate the abuses, the worst possible uses, the things which involve unfairness and discrimination and so forth, things that are inconsistent with Western values. And I would like to see a global commission that's organized around Western values, those of freedom and democracy and so forth. That's my own view. And if we have to bring in people who are non-Western in their values, then let's accommodate them, but make sure that they understand that we want these systems to reflect Western values. The reason we need a global conference is that we need to start talking about this. Because imagine a situation, look at the Ukraine-Russia conflict today, which is largely conventional. Imagine if it were being fought by AI robots. How would we deal with that? How would we deal with the difference in values between the Russians and the Ukraine and Westerns? How would we sort all of that out? Also, such conflicts would occur much, much quicker. So part of the problem you have with conflict is you have much less time now. My example would be, there's a fight between North Korea, they attack the United States, China decides it's a bad idea and stops it, and the entire war is about 100 milliseconds. Because the whole thing was done faster than humans could decide, using computers that decided when to attack and when to defend. There are an enormous set of issues in the scenario that I just described. Who decides? How do you make sure you're limited? How do you deal with balance of power? All of these kinds of things. All of these things have to get discussed right now.
Well, Dr. Eric Schmidt, we're really grateful for your time, your experience, and your expertise. Thank you so much for giving us your time here on our special digital program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schmidt, for your valuable contribution. Now I would like to invite the official co-host of the REAIM Summit, the Republic of Korea. I'm very honored to invite to the stage the Minister of Foreign Affairs, His Excellency, Mr. Park Yin. Please, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I'm Park Jin, Foreign Minister of the Republic of Korea. I would like to extend my gratitude to the Netherlands for their exceptional leadership in organizing the REAIM Summit and for their gracious hospitality. The Hague, known as International City of Peace and Justice, provides the ideal setting for this important gathering. More than 40 sessions were held yesterday and today with an impressive number of people from more than 80 countries to discuss military applications of AI and its implications. And I have the feeling that all of us agree that the impact of AI on our lives are so significant that no country is free from the common challenge that we face. When I think of the wrong use of artificial intelligence, like many of you, the movie Terminator comes to mind. As you know, the film is about stopping the rise of a dangerous AI system called Skynet to safeguard the future of humanity. It is a cautionary tale about dangers of AI and its potential unintended consequences. which many participants today pointed out. The REAIM Summit marks a significant step in raising global awareness about these potential risks and the importance of developing and using AI responsibly. Over the past 2 days, we had productive discussions with experts from diverse backgrounds on the opportunities and challenges presented by AI. With the wisdom gained from the conference, we should proceed and act to prevent wrong uses of AI in the military domain. Because AI is evolving rapidly, we must prepare and act before it's too late. This is all the more important, especially to Korea, which is facing a real threat from North Korea in terms of escalating weapons of mass destruction program, including nuclear and missile threats. The challenge of controlling the military application of AI is different from what we did in the past. One major difference is that AI is primarily about invisible software, not visible hardware. The distinction between non-military technology and military technology will not be so clear-cut and in many cases indivisible. Another challenge is the potential tension between those who already have AI technologies and those who do not. AI is closely tied to our daily lives and economy, so there will be natural reservations to any controlling mechanism that prevents latecomers from developing their own AI technology. So, ladies and gentlemen, as a leading Asian nation in AI development, Republic of Korea recognizes the significance of pursuing meaningful dialogue on this topic. This also aligns with our Yoon Suk-yeol government's initiative, which seeks to establish a digital order that promotes freedom, solidarity, and human rights. Therefore, Korea is committed to securing political attention to the issue and promoting international discussions. We will prioritize facilitating dialogue among relevant stakeholders, including governments, the private sector, civil society, and academia. In doing so, we will build on our experiences from hosting the Conference on Cyberspace and the Nuclear Security Summit, which we organized together with the Netherlands and the United States. To this end, we plan to delve into the implications of AI on global peace and security at the annual World Emerging Security Forum, hosted by Korea later this year. And more importantly, Korea is proud to announce that it will host the second REAIM Summit in Korea in cooperation with the Netherlands. Let me close by saying that the responsible military use of AI is not just a technical matter, but a political one that requires the attention and commitment of all of us. Therefore, I would like to encourage our partners to join us in supporting the REAIM Summit's call to action. Korea also appreciates the efforts of the United States to develop a political declaration that promotes best practices. So we must continue to work together to ensure this issue remains a priority on our political agenda. Once again, I would like to thank all of you for your active engagement and contributions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. So we have something to look forward to. But maybe now let us look back to our splendid program of the past 2 days. We have a short recap video of about 2 minutes just to show you what you might have missed when you were busy at the other plenary sessions.
I am so happy to gather you all here in The Hague at the World Forum.
There are 3 themes that are central during this conference: myth-busting AI, responsible deployment of the use of AI, and governance frameworks.
Time travels fast.
AI is everywhere. It is changing the way we live, it is changing the way we work, and it is clearly changing the military.
The more our civilian societies become accustomed to these technologies, robotics and AI, the more we also will accept the employment of these technologies on the battlefield.
For me, it is the most important element that it is reliable, it is trustworthy, and there is no data bias.
Wars are dirty. Biases are part of warfare.
So there's a fair chance of data bias.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
In the civilian domain, you're constantly looking to minimize risk. And war is different. You have to take risks.
One of the challenges is that as these things are being developed, we're hoping, I guess, that countries will be responsible in how they're developing them, but we don't know that.
We have to understand how it can help, but never ever hand it over to AI.
How do we as humans stay in touch with our own decision making?
Today's gathering is one that could lead us closer to an international agreement.
It's so rare to have such a multi-stakeholder venue where you have people from all across the world and all different disciplines.
And to understand each other better, I think is the first best next step for a global approach to AI governance.
It has been estimated that AI is as groundbreaking as nuclear technology.
We don't want any system to generate its own goals, but what about the systems that are already there?
Is that something tucked away in the future? No, it's happening right now.
So it's here to stay, and we need to think about how to apply it responsibly.
The machine will not decide, it's a human being.
And then to officially close REAIM 2023, I would like to give the floor to the Minister of the Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, Mr. Hoekstra. The floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, what is there more to say? It has been a true pleasure to meet with all of you, to speak, to think with such inspiring people about a topic that clearly concerns all of us. And it is about our future. And I made a confession at the Ministerial Roundtable that I would like to repeat here in full transparency. Of the 2,000 people present at the conference, it is probably true, it is certainly true that we politicians know the least about AI. And it is that lack of knowledge, that lack of understanding that actually makes me uncomfortable. But at the same time, it gives me a strong sense of urgency. AI is already changing our world, and we've seen it and we've discussed it here at this conference. It is helping us translate, navigate, write, and indeed, as I said at the beginning, it can even write poetry, which I would argue is actually an utterly human activity. And at the same time, AI and AI's potential to think and act for humans worries me. As imperfect as we are, we must take responsibility at all times. For our own actions, for the technology we create, and for decisions about the most essential, life and death. And that is only one of the aspects of AI that inspires the urgency I, and I'm sure all of you, feel. We must act now, so we can use the potential of AI to make our world safer and actually better. And so we can ensure the responsible development, deployment and use of AI in the military domain within the parameters of international law. And I'm very pleased that this sense of urgency is felt by everyone here today. People from more than 80 countries gathered here in The Hague. Ladies and gentlemen, AI is all of our business. It's as political as it is technical. It is as public as it is commercial. If we leave AI to others, we're leaving our very future actually to others. And together, we're raising awareness of that urgency, motivating countries, companies, and civil society organizations to heed our call to action today. More than 60 countries have already endorsed the call to action, and I sincerely hope more will follow. So let us work together to make sure we persuade them. And let me thank the 2 countries that have already responded to our call to action. The US, the United States, with its initiative to work on norms and principles, and the Republic of Korea, that will organize the next REAIM summit. They both have, of course, our full support and commitment. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past 2 days, we've increased our understanding of what AI is, how it can be deployed, and what specific risks are involved. We've busted myths, shared our thoughts about the responsible use of it, and spoken about government frameworks and how to continue. We've also learned how our efforts today differ from traditional arms control, which actually essentially is something different, and that AI is much more about risk management. And we've identified tools that can ensure the responsible use of AI. However, there are clearly still many open questions. And I'd like to invite you to think about the structure of the Global Commission that we aim to launch to seek answers to specifically these questions. Dear friends, we are living in a very challenging time. A time of global warming, a time of war, a time of poverty. And the international community is doing its utmost to put out these fires. But now it has the unique opportunity to prevent, rather than to just respond. To close the stable door before the horse bolts. To prevent AI from taking us to a place we actually don't want to be. And at the same time, to open the door to the future we do seek, we do want, and we do wish for our children. When it comes to warfare technology, you could say that for the first time in history, we're actually ahead of the future. But only just. If you compare the speed of the development of ChatGPT to our track record in making agreements and reaching decisions, we've actually got no time to lose. And that is why we must make haste. This conference is clearly only the starting point of a long process, but I'm actually very hopeful. Because during the past 2 days, we've not only shared our knowledge, we've also shown our joint commitment. And to me, the conference's biggest return is the signal we're sending to the world. That we want a future for our children that lives up to our standards, to our values, and to our agreements. That we want to expand and fortify the international legal order, which is actually under severe pressure. And that we are prepared to take full responsibility. And now we want as many other countries as possible to join us. Or let me put it in these poetic words that ChatGPT generated for me one very last time. World leaders, hear our call. Let's work together, lest we fall. To set standards, guide the way. For AI in the military, let us pave the way. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and I wish you safe travels. Thank you.